Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. We're going to talk about Smackdown from December the 1st, 2023. We're coming down to the end of the road on 2023, and I had to say, the end of this show was hot. It was fire. I really enjoyed the end of this show. Now, the show wasn't that bad, but the end was excellent. It was fantastic. Before we really get into SmackDown, I really have no news and notes. WWE's been very quiet. Very quiet. So I want to talk about Fox instead. Look at all the commercials for Fox. And it's all college football, NFL, and game shows. Like, how many damn game shows do Fox actually have? How many of these Masked Singer ripoff shows do they really need? I think there's 100 of these shows now. Like, I remember when, I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember this, but Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? I used to love that show. That and Survivor. Like, when those things really jumped off, you started seeing 100 ripoffs. You started seeing, like, Amazing Race, and then there was a bunch of, I liked Amazing Race too, but there was, like, a bunch of them. And it became, like, a cottage industry. But then it went from that to reality TV, Love and Hip Hop. What was the other one? It was another one that had DMX on it. Well, DMX was on 2 of them, I think. But they were all on VH1. Then it was like all the stuff with Flavor Flav and all this. And now it seems to be like the Dancing with the Stars, Masked Singer. Everybody's on stage singing a song. And it's like, these TV shows seem like it's all crap to me. It's all bad. Like, is that what television is? Like, I don't watch TV outside of wrestling. So, I don't know. But this Fox is terrible, bro. Like, I was looking at this like, who would want to watch anything on this channel outside of wrestling or football? But whatever. Moving on. Let's talk about SmackDown. Enough of my preamble and me just being angry at Fox. Bianca Belair starts the show. She's still feuding with Damage Control. Is there a such thing as a blow-off match in the Triple H era? Do we ever actually end feuds with cage matches or whatever? Why isn't this over? I get why it's still going. I just wish it was not still going. Let's just get to the end of this. Bianca Belair wants the title. Dakota Kai says that she has to beat everybody in Damage Control. They're going to start with Kairi Sane. So Charlotte and Shotzi come down to the rings to watch her back. Damage Control goes backstage. They're upset that Bayley wasn't there. They wanted Bayley to be at Kairi's side tonight. And then Bayley said, "Oh, well, I didn't know. Nobody told me. You guys are leaving me out." That's what she didn't say that, but that's what it is. They're leaving her out of things. So then right before the big match, Bayley is told to stay backstage. They don't want her out there. So they have themselves sort of an impromptu lumberjill match, which is the in-ring main event of the show, Kairi Sane versus Bianca Belair. Apparently, these two have not worked a match in 5 years. Well, clearly, Kairi Sane's been gone for a long time. But apparently, they worked together in NXT. Somebody said, I think they said they worked in early 2019. Was the last time they had a singles match. And this is Kairi's first singles match since she returned. She doesn't have her own theme song anymore, so now she just enters the Damage Control's theme. And there's some chicanery outside the ring. So everybody gets ejected. This leaves Bayley to come out. Bayley tries to help Kairi Sane, but it's not enough. Kairi loses. I was kind of surprised that Kairi lost the first match back. I figured if you were going to have her lose, you could have had her win something. Now she's lost the War Games match, and she's lost this one. Now, she didn't get beaten in the War Games match, but she lost the War Games match, too. So, I don't know. I get it. She's just like a henchman in this storyline right now, but you might want to keep people with some credibility here. So, Bianca is going to probably still be in the hunt for wrestling EO. I don't know. Again, blow-off match. When do we end this? I appreciate that she's not forgotten and she's not out of the loop and everything. But the Charlotte stuff, the Shotzi stuff, I feel like it's almost as if War Games didn't happen. Because if the people who were fighting before then are still fighting. And Damage Control and Bianca Belair have been feuding for 2 years. I think they've been feuding since Damage Control was formed. This feud is long as shit. What? Why is this feud so long? This is like, hot damn, this is like WCW versus the NWO. Like, why is this thing so long? Next, Butch wrestled Bobby Lashley and was defeated. Right. So Lashley got on the microphone, which I know a lot of people was kind of like, rrr. But he said he told Butch to make a name for himself. And once he did that, the crowd started chanting for Lashley. And he said kind of like that. Then he said that he didn't want him to make a name for himself against him because he's going to break him into pieces. And is he ready for that? So Butch then attacked Lashley because we're supposed to believe that Butch is a really tough guy. He's a miniature. Very tough guy. Okay? Lashley ends up winning with a little bit of help from the Street Profits, but it was mostly physical domination on Lashley's part. Backstage, Butch is selling the beatdown. He then is asked about Ridge Holland and why his partner walked off on him. He says, I don't know. And I don't really care. I don't care about the Brawling Brutes. It's all about me. It's fight night. Then he gets approached by Pretty Deadly. And Pretty Deadly, they make fun of him for being alone. Then he tries to beat them up, and then they beat him up and throw him against the wall, which was excellent. Then they yell at him and scream at him and laugh at him for being alone. So clearly he's about to form another tag team. And it's Tyler Bate, isn't it? It's the miniature Tyler. It's that guy, right? Holy hell. Look, Tyler Bate needs to be a heel. He doesn't need to be whatever it is they're about to try to make him do on this show. Two pale Englishmen. With both of them with less charisma than a brown M&M. Look, I like Tyler Bate, but come on, man. I just know it's Tyler Bate. Who else could it be? Sheamus is not coming back no time soon. He's injured. And apparently they're doing something different with Ridge Holland. But this also might be a stealth way of them renaming Butch. I think he might be coming back as Pete Dunne. I don't see why they wouldn't use that name. They've allowed a lot of people to use their names that they had before. They could probably adjust it if there's, an issue. Maybe we call him the Butcher, Pete Dunne or something. I don't know. I'm just talking. All right. We'll come back to the Bloodline stuff. We'll do that last. Santos Escobar backstage says that he's going to finish what Ray started, and that Cruz del Toro and Joaquin Wilde are still blinded by Rey Mysterio. This leads to his match with Joaquin Wilde, which is a singles match. I think this might be DJZ's first singles match on the main roster of WWE. And he actually made the most of it. He looked pretty good here. He had a nice little spot where he did like a senton, a springboard senton onto Santos. Actually got over. Santos, of course, wins the match. He starts punching Joaquin after the match. Dragon Lee comes down there in street clothes and beat up Santos and chased him off. All right, so the Santos Escobar Dragon Lee thing is continuing. They're going to have Santos Escobar wrestle every member of the LWO. Well, it's only two of them, but you got two, and then you circle back to Dragon Lee. All right, I'm fine with that. I don't hate it. It's a good spotlight. The matches aren't going to be too long. They're not 15 minutes. So you get to see Santos beat these guys up, and then once he's outnumbered, hopefully he's going to bring up the Garzas, Angel and Humberto. I hope that happens. I really do. Logan Paul cut a promo, the gist of which is that haters and betrayers make him work harder and make him win. And his exact words were, the more you hate me, the more you want me to fail, the harder I work. The harder I work, the more I win, which I like. I like that idea, and it's actually pretty heroic that you don't allow people to beat you down. Heels with such strength of character. I'm not mad at it, if we're being honest. Then he says that everybody wants this title, but the title been on his junk just like everybody else since he got there. Then he says he's been looking for a challenger, and since Rey Mysterio is injured, he can't give Rey the rematch that he wants. So he created a tournament in connection with Nick Aldis. And the tournament features 8 wrestlers: Santos Escobar, Grayson Waller, Dragon Lee, Austin Theory, Karrion Kross, eyebrows raised, Kevin Owens, Lashley, and an NXT superstar. So somebody from NXT is going to get a chance to wrestle in this tournament. Now, you may say to yourself, Mongo, this tournament is probably not a bad idea. It's going to have an NXT call-up in it. Mongo, it's going to be a good idea. It's a good tournament. And then they spent the next 10 minutes destroying this entire concept because now he's going to feud with Kevin Owens. So who's going to win the tournament? Oh, the random NXT superstar? Karrion Kross is going to win the tournament, even though he doesn't even work television. He does like 90% house shows. Like this guy, this is not real. This tournament sucks. If you're not going to book a tournament with common sense, just get rid of it. Just scrap it. They're not doing tournaments right. Everybody in this thing, with the exception of Karrion Kross and the NXT guy, are feuding with somebody else that's already in this thing. Escobar is already feuding with Dragon Lee. And Austin Theory, Grayson Waller, and Kevin Owens have been feuding. So that should give it away right there. I hate this tournament idea. I like tournaments. I really do. I like the King of the Ring. But to me, if you're going to do a tournament, there has to be some real stakes to it. It has to have some interesting matchups. This seems to be straight up single elimination, which is better for everybody. And it's a good way to burn some time, considering there's so much time between now and the Rumble. But that's the problem. They're just burning time between now and the Rumble. This title is cold. And then, again, you go through all the trouble of booking the tournament, and then you give Kevin Owens all this face time with the champion. So Kevin Owens comes out there because his name was mentioned. He starts talking about knowing that he was a jackass, he being Logan Paul, pronouns pal. He knew he was a jackass from looking at him on Vine all those many years ago. The nightmare is going to end when he wins the U.S. title. Then Logan Paul makes some jokes about knocking Kevin Owens out. Grayson Waller comes out there, says that Logan Paul should not be engaging at all with Kevin Owens, which is a sentiment I agree with. And then Grayson Waller says the three of them, meaning Logan Paul, Grayson Waller, Austin Theory, all have something in common. And I agree with that. They're all very similar. Then Austin Theory talks and he gets punched in the face by Kevin Owens, to which there was no reprisal. Kevin Owens has punched Austin Theory in the face 3 of the last 4 weeks, it seems like. Maybe even 4 of the last 4 weeks. It's just random comedic punch in the face. It's so bizarre that Austin Theory he's got to have heat with somebody backstage. He's got to have heat with somebody. They need to get Columbo on this. They need Matlock to figure this out. The Hardy Boys, Nancy Drew. They need to call somebody with some detective skills to figure out who he pissed off backstage, that they're using his forehead as a urinal every fucking week on this show for this greasy fat fuck, Kevin Owens. Every week, he's just coming out there looking stupid. What is going on? And it was like so Kevin Owens wrestles a match against Grayson Waller, because that's what we got to do. Now, he wins the match, but it was kind of like he stole a victory. Okay. During the match, Logan Paul's on commentary. Logan Paul calls Kevin Owens' body egg-shaped. After Logan Paul was called inspirational, Logan Paul says that Kevin Owens inspires him to go to McDonald's. The fat jokes were aplenty. I thought it was great. He was excellent on commentary. Of course, he denied knowing anything about some brass knuckles, because that liar Michael Cole was talking about brass knuckles. So Kevin Owens wins the match. He beats Grayson Waller, but they're still going to have to go into the tournament where no doubt these guys probably won't wrestle each other again. But it was weird that you would put them in a tournament and then have them wrestle against each other. So now you know that match is not about to be in a tournament. So there we go. And I feel like he's been wrestling Austin Theory and Grayson Waller, maybe one or the other, for the last 3 or 4 weeks too. But here's what I was going to say before I cut myself off. I'm kind of over these 40-year-old Ring of Honor guys. The Kevin Owens, the CM Punks. I still like Danielson. I'm a big fan. But the Adam Coles, Roderick Strong, I wouldn't care if I never saw these fucking guys again. I get it. I like Sami Zayn. I think the world of Sami Zayn as a performer. Same thing with Bryan Danielson. But, it's time, I think. Kevin Owens is not a fresh new talent anymore. It's time to move on. I just don't see what he brings to the show anymore. As a babyface, he's terrible. It's time to move on. There's got to be hundreds of people on the roster that needs that opportunity, but we keep going back to Kevin freaking Owens. Come on, man. He's not that good. And I know Triple H really, really likes him, loves him, but come on, get the fuck out of here. Kevin Owens versus Logan Paul. I guess it's fine. But I would have. I guess. So, look, Logan Paul is not going to wrestle Lashley or Karrion Kross or Austin Theory or Grayson Waller or Santos Escobar. He might wrestle Dragon Lee. So maybe we'll get saved and it's Dragon Lee that'll be the opponent for Logan Paul. Even though Logan Paul says he's already beat the greatest luchador, so he has no interest in wrestling Dragon Lee. And I was saying, no! That kind of speaks for itself. But it's going to be Kevin Owens versus Logan Paul, and I'm not a fan. Because Kevin Owens, his gimmick being the smartest guy in the room, I can't stand it. It pisses me off so much. I cannot stand that guy, man. He sucks so bad. Still trying to figure out why you would book a tournament and then basically just override the tournament by having Logan Paul stand in the ring with Kevin Owens. That's goofy. Instead of just having Kevin Owens cut a promo on him backstage or something. Whatever. Let's just move on. Paul Heyman. So Paul Heyman goes to visit Nick Aldis because Nick Aldis is plotting and scheming to sign Randy Orton, who is a free agent. He was undrafted because he was injured when the draft happened. So when he came back, he does not have a team. So Paul Heyman is like, look, what is this? You cannot sign this man without letting Roman Reigns know. So Nick Aldis says, I got CC'd in this email that says all communication with Roman Reigns has to go through Paul Heyman. So he says, consider this communication. So at some point, Adam Pearce catches up to Nick Aldis, and he's got an attitude. Nick Aldis is about to try to steal his talent. He says Randy Orton is a Monday Night Legend. A Monday Night Legend. Well, that's just greasing the wheels right there, brother. How can he turn you down when you're glazing him so much? How can he turn you down? So they decided to have a bidding war at the end of the show. Nick Aldis and Adam Pearce, they're both there yelling at Randy about what they can offer him. Adam Pearce promised him a championship match, the winner of Rollins versus Jey Uso. Nick Aldis promises him all of the guys that he says that he wanted, which was the Bloodline. Paul Heyman then comes to the ringside. Heyman says that he knows that Randy is looking for revenge, but the Bloodline is going to make the decision for him. And then Jimmy Uso and Solo Sikoa run down to the ring and they fight with Randy. Randy takes a little bit of bump before LA Knight comes out there and makes the big save. The place went bonkers. Absolutely nuts for LA Knight to make the big save. He fights off with Solo Sikoa, leaving Jimmy Uso to get the hanging DDT and the RKO. People are still going crazy. Adam Pearce slides the contract to Randy, who considers it. Heyman is yelling at Randy from ringside that he's safe on Raw. You're very safe on Raw, sir. You have no idea what horrors await you if you stay here on Friday Night Smackdown. And so Randy Orton, because he is who he is, throws down the Raw contract, picks up the SmackDown one, signs it, and places it on the chest of Jimmy Uso. He picks up the mic, suggests that Paul Heyman call Roman Reigns and tell him that Daddy's back. Place goes unglued. Now we know Roman, Randy, Royal Rumble. Oh my goodness. You're going to be able to count the bumps on one hand. I don't think either one of them going to take a bump for the first 5 or 6 minutes. They're going to walk and brawl the shit out of this. It ought to be great, you know. How are they going to be able to have a great match with nobody taking a bump? It's going to be a marvel. It's going to be a masterclass in learning how to work as they map this match out so that neither one of them gets hurt and neither one of them gets blown up. So they ought to be great. It's going to be a very, very interesting piece of business. There's not going to be a 450 splash or moonsault to be had. You might see Randy Orton do a drop kick, but you probably won't. You already know he can't throw a clothesline for real, so you're probably not going to take that barricade spot because he already got a bad back. This thing is going to be humorous. I can tell you that. Whoever the agent is, just get your 4 stars ready. Put your big boy thinking hat on and try to figure out how you're going to have these two guys work a match that's going to be at least 20 minutes where nobody's going to get hurt, nobody's going to take a bump, and then the match is going to be satisfactory. It might not be the greatest match you've ever seen, but it's going to be good. I can tell you that much. All hail the agent that's going to have to put this thing together because you're going to have a tough time. You got 6 weeks. So that's more than enough time to build the story and to build things to a fever pitch where people will not care that the match is going to be basically Hogan Warrior, where somebody might stand in a bear hug for 20 minutes. In any event, I love it. This great booking. Randy Orton's back for revenge. It's very simple. Speaks for itself. What more? You don't really need more than that. LA Knight is still feuding with Solo Sikoa, so you have that concern going on as well. Jimmy Uso is just kind of floating about. He's a henchman, so I guess you could have Randy Orton beat him up shortly before the show and, you know, kind of destroy him and take him out. So that ought to be fun too. SmackDown, in terms of a show, there are still, you know, a lot of people who are not really properly utilized. And for a show with very little active champions, it's actually pretty good. You know, Roman's basically inactive. Logan Paul's a part-time champion. The tag team titles are never there. That means the men's or the women's. The only champion that's kind of the star of the show is Io Sky, which I know, you know, concerns a lot of people because they really don't care about the women's division or whatever, but she's the only active champion that's actually doing anything on this brand. But they filled it with personal feuds, which actually work. You know, the personal issue between LA Knight and Solo Sikoa is money. The personal issue between Santos Escobar and Carlito is money. You know, I do concern, you know, what's going on with Lashley and the Street Profits and all this kind of stuff. Like, there was no movement on that storyline this week, which I'm not a big fan of. Same thing with Ridge Holland. Like, you had Ridge Holland leave Butch last week when you got no explanation. The only concern is that Butch is going to go it alone and find his own partner or whatever. Now, in terms of the NXT talent, could it be possible that the NXT talent is going to get called up? It's probably going to be Tyler Bate. He might lose in the tournament and end up being friends with Butch. And then we get like British Strong Style as a tag team on SmackDown, which would continue similar to the DIY trend where Triple H keeps his NXT boys close to the vest in a division where they can't ruin it. They're not exactly going to save it, but they can't really ruin it. They can have good matches, but nobody will actually care about them. Or they could do what Johnny Gargano did at NXT and have what the equivalent of a Jackie Chan fight scene in the middle of the match and make me want to pitch my TV into traffic. But I don't know if British Strong Style really kind of does that stuff. It's just, again, two guys with no charisma, which is highly unusual for a wrestling show. We're just going to have a bunch of guys with no charisma wrestle in a match. So overall, I liked SmackDown. I thought it was a good show. The Logan Paul segment was really good before Kevin Owens came out there and crushed the building. Loved the segment between Aldis, Pierce, and Orton where they were bidding over Orton, promising him things just outright, not even money. Just, I'll give you my firstborn child. I'll give you my wife for 10 days. It's like they're just yelling random stuff at Randy. Like, I thought it was very good because it showed how, you know, how sought after he is. That he is a legend, but not just a Monday night legend, Adam Pearce. Because he works substantially on SmackDown too. But I like the idea. Something in my back of my mind is saying maybe they shouldn't have made the decision. Maybe should have just asked them and they could have continued courting him on Raw and you know, SmackDown again. But at the same time, though, it felt like it was the right decision to just do it now and get it out of the way. I think the underrated part of the Randy Orton scenario is the RKO on Nick Aldis, which I think is going to lead to, since Nick Aldis seems to be a big no nonsense kind of general manager, he's pretty staunch. That's not going to go unpunished. He's not going to forget that. And they've been doing some stuff with Nick Aldis that kind of, people think that Nick Aldis is going to wrestle Adam Pearce at some point. I think they'll probably do the old Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, or the Bischoff and Bischoff and Austin, where they pick teams or something like that. They may do something like that. I think they've often decided to tease that Adam Pearce is going to wrestle, and he never actually does. Now, Nick Aldis might actually wrestle, but I could see him using his authority basically to ruin Randy Orton's run, because Randy Orton gave him that RKO. And since he signed the contract before he did it, he was technically a SmackDown superstar when he gave him an RKO. So that will give Nick Aldis some ability to have his own version of revenge. So I think people should not forget that. Keep that in your back pocket, because it might be a way of having Orton with something to do even after he wrestles Roman. So maybe after the Royal Rumble, we get Aldis and Orton kind of going into WrestleMania, which might be fine. I don't think Adam Pearce is going to wrestle, though, but whatever. So I like the idea. I think that's why I think so much about that final segment was very good, because it has so many layers to it. The competition between Aldis and Pearce, the desire for a big star like Randy Orton to be on your show, the tease of Orton and Roman at a big show, the turn of Orton hitting the RKO on Nick Aldis, LA Knight and Solo Sikoa continuing their thing. There's just so much there and so much happening that it seemed like it was a lot to just dump in one segment, but it ended up being the hottest segment on the show for a reason. So that was very good, and can't say enough good things about it. Now, next week, they're going to start that silly tournament. And you have to win a tournament to be the number one contender for the United States title, when Logan Paul didn't have to win a tournament. And literally nobody else has ever had to win a tournament to be the number one contender for the United States champion. For the championship, sure. But just to be the number one contender, forget it. So next week, this takes us to something that happened after the show. CM Punk is going to be on SmackDown next week. And don't you know who won't be there? Kevin Owens. They're doing a gimmick where Kevin Owens injured his wrist in that match against Grayson Waller. And he's going to need an X-ray and an MRI and who knows what else. And it's in question whether Kevin Owens will be there next week when CM Punk arrives. And considering he's good buddies with the Young Bucks, they might as well just go ahead and get it out of the way, man. Just get it out of the way. Just put Kevin Owens and CM Punk in the same ring, so all these 40-year-old ROH marks can be very, very excited. Like, I watched this guy in a guard armory in Pensacola or whatever. Just go ahead and get it out of the way, man. I don't think they're going to tease Punk joining SmackDown, because I think he should be on Raw. They need more help on Raw, unless he's going to be the replacement for Roman Reigns. And I don't think CM Punk is wrestling on TV that often. I definitely think he's going to take that edge position where he's going to wrestle occasionally. And that's about it. I don't think that he's going to be full-time roster guy. But just having Punk on SmackDown ought to be interesting for the tribute to the troops. That ought to be interesting. I'm wondering where they're going to go with that. Wonder if he's going to be on Raw, because I don't think he's been advertised for Raw. He just only been advertised for SmackDown next week. So I guess we'll see. But overall, I like SmackDown as a show. There's a lot to talk about, which is good. But the matches, oh brother, some of the storylines are very, very soft. But overall, I like the show. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll talk to you guys later.